Welcome to Edible and Medicinal Treasures of the Wildwood. Today we're going to take a look at a very interesting fungus, the Ganoderma applanatum. Ganoderma applanatum has become known in the West more recently for its medicinal properties. It can be cut into small pieces, or when it's younger and tenderer, shaved thin, and a tea can be made of it that is said to have many healing properties, which, after looking at the stories about it, I think are very similar to the properties that are also attributed to Traumates versicolor, the turkey tail, and also the well-known chaga fungi. Ganoderma applanatum can also be used by cutting small pieces of just maybe a centimeter across and a millimeter or so thick, a dime's thickness, and placing it under the tongue to soak and swallowing the juices as it soaks. And once it's become soft enough, it can be chewed up and swallowed. Ganoderma tea is not especially tasty. I do enjoy chaga tea a great deal, though Ganoderma tea just tastes ordinary to me. Here you can see a Ganoderma that I've picked. Ganoderma can be told by its brown overside. After it rains, this brown looks much like it's been varnished, and as it dries, it becomes sort of a polished, slightly lustrous brown like you see here, with defined and brilliant white outer edges where it's growing, and some black along those outer edges. It's a slightly irregular top, a bit bumpy. I'll turn it to the side so that you can see it. Most noteworthy, it has a beautiful, smooth, white underside. I'll draw it in closer. I apologize for my fingers under the underside. It's virtually unavoidable when harvesting Ganoderma by hand. There are pores on the underside. They are so small, they are virtually invisible to this camera. They are virtually invisible, in fact, to the naked eye, though they can be observed through a 10 or 20 power loop. The spores of the Ganoderma are brown. It's these brown spores which allow the Ganoderma to be drawn on. When a person uses a fine point to place a little pressure on the Ganoderma, it responds by making a clearly defined line. And as it dries, that line will become permanent, and the fungi itself will become as hard as wood, and it will last a great long time. The Ganoderma provides a drawing medium that looks very, very much like scrimshaw. The Ganoderma is a parasitic mushroom. It grows primarily on dead wood, which it's doing here, and it's welcome to grow on this wood, as this old poplar stump provides a ready source of Ganoderma, and we use Ganoderma tea from time to time, and sometimes we slice it thin and use it as a medicinal just to put under our tongues. I allow the Ganoderma to grow on this wood, and always make sure to leave some here so that it spreads. Ganoderma can also be a parasitic fungi and will occasionally settle on live trees, and when it does so, and it manages to set mycelium in the tree, it will ultimately destroy the tree. If I were to break open this stump, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to endanger my Ganoderma stump, but if I were to break open this stump, we would undoubtedly see some of the mycelium underneath the wood. I will show you, though, a young Ganoderma to compare to the older one that I've just picked. When they're young, they can be torn away from the host stump, and they're fairly flexible, like a hard rubber when they're very young. When they get to this size, they're like an extremely hard rubber, and if you listen up here, you can hear crunching noises. It gets to be like an outer crunchy shell. When they're this one here is still younger. In fact, this is another first year, so it still has a fair bit of flexibility. But when they're much older, like this small but brown one here, and broken off, they're more like cork now. They have some flexibility, they can be compressed, they have a mushroomy scent. And they can even be broken without too much trouble when they are this small. You can see where I've broken this Ganoderma. At the tip of my thumb, the fungal part, the outer rind, and the spore tubes here underneath. In fact, you can see the grain of the spore tubes descending from the fungal part above. I just noticed this. This is a very young pair of Ganoderma fruiting bodies just now emerging, and for scale, there's my fingernail in the picture. They will probably get to be as big as these Ganoderma here over a few months. Ganoderma will grow from year to year. The inner part is what grew last year. The paler part especially is what's growing now this year. The paler part is what's growing now this year. And the white outer lip is current growth, and if you squeeze it, you can feel it's quite flexible, showing that it's new growth. It's still soft and pliant. In fact, I suspect that white outer part could probably be cooked and eaten, though I haven't tested that theory yet. It wouldn't be poisonous. The Ganoderma is a usable mushroom. It just may be tough, or it may be bitter. I've yet to test it. I do know that some other shelf-type mushrooms like this, which are not poisonous, such as the common birch polypore, when it's very young, is tender, and I've heard that it can be cooked by some reputable sources. I've not seen documentation, but some reputable sources on mushroom forums that I participate on have reported that they can use it as a food. Perhaps I'll try it next year. The Ganoderma fungus is an important one to know for mushroomers who are interested in medicinal fungi. It is highly valued in Asia and elsewhere in the world for its healing properties, and new research is beginning to verify that there are important truths behind this ancient lore. I'm Cliff Sarantine. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Edible and Medicinal Treasures of the Wildwood.